and so on. But wait, no. According to our intention, our programming goal was to have 1, then dash, 2, then dash, and after 4 dash, then we print a single done. So our done printing, this printing of this text called done, is not intended to be repeated. In other words, it's not intended to be part of this statement block. So how do we tell Python, just stop at the dash, but don't repeat this done here? Very simple. Undent it. Like this. Okay, undent. So when it's aligned with the global statement block, Python knows that there are 3 statements in this program. First statement, all right, because these are comments, they are not statements. This is the first statement. Second statement. Now I'm not cheating here because the entire highlighted 3 physical lines constitutes one logical statement. So Python sees these 3 physical lines as one logical statement. Yeah. So this statement requires a for. For expects a statement body here, a statement block body here, to be repeated. When does it start? When does it end? The first time a statement immediately is being indented, it's the start of the statement block. The time when it is unindented marks the end. Right. So it is visually very clear to us, and I hope it's to you as well, and it is therefore also very clear to Python what exact logic you want to implement. Right. So let's just give it a run. If I didn't undent it, it would have been something like this. So there is no syntax error, no red flags recognizable by Python. But there is a logic error because we didn't get the programming goal that we set off to achieve. Yeah, because the done is repeated multiple times. We wanted done to be a signal that everything is done. So when we do this and we run again, this time round it is correct. The logic is correctly implemented. Okay, and of course you have to take note that the alignment has to be perfect. Really, perfect in the sense that if you started with 4, everything else must be 4. If we zigzag a little bit, you see that Spider didn't allow this, and certainly when you see red flag raised by Spider, it won't work in Python. Don't hope it won't, right? It will not work. However, if so long as we are consistent, suppose you are not liking this very deep 4-character indentation, you prefer a 2-character indentation, all right? It is okay so long as we are consistent. Then we can run again, and the logic is the same. We're just telling Python that this statement block is starting here, starting line 14, ending line 15. Yeah, so it is okay to indent to the same depth so long as we are consistent. So what is a good level of indentation? By general programming practice in the world, it tends to be 4. All right, it's debatable. Some people might argue it's 2, but 2 tends to be a bit shallow when you zoom out. Oops, sorry. All right, so if you zoom out, well, it's kind of a little bit stressing on the eyes. But if you have 4, it's likely to be both visible and yet not waste too much of the horizontal space. So it's kind of a balance of both. Okay, so let's come back to our screen. When do we have to put in a statement block? Now, you might have the fear, or maybe correctly, that you have to memorize it. But fortunately, Python has a very systematic way of doing it. Just remember that whenever a line ends with a colon, yeah, we will require a statement block immediately after it. So let's check. For statement by design requires a colon. If you delete the colon, Spider will red flag, Python will not run. So if you have a colon at the end, remember to indent subsequent lines, right? Your statement block can be as short as 1 line. Cannot be 0 line, but can be as short as 1 line. Can be as long as any lines you need. Again, good programming practice will warn you, will remind you that you shouldn't have a very, very long 1,000 line statement block. All right, so you should try to do some compactization of the code, reuse the code, uh, taking into considerations other topics that we will discuss today. Yeah. Now, the set of commands that end with colon is very limited and well defined. Try, except, if, elif, else, the for loop, the while loop, the definition of function, class, and another keyword with, so they're all there and very easy to detect whether you need to have a statement block or not. So if you download codes and you're reading it and you find that there's a with, for example, you may not understand what it means, that's fine, but you know that immediately after with colon, you need to have indentation to begin a statement block. Yeah. Next, a closely associated concept with statement block will be scope and namespace. Scope and namespace. So very quickly, scope is our physical typing of the program to implement namespace. Yeah, you can think of it that way. So scope is the mechanism for us to implement namespace. So how do we start a scope? Well, a scope begins whenever you have a function definition like this. A function is always defined by def. A class definition that begins with class, all right, and import of a library or module or previously written Python codes by other people or yourself. When you import it in, when you suck the code into your namespace, you have the option of creating a new namespace for that imported code and set of variables. So these are the three very commonly encountered situations when new namespaces are created. Now, I've been talking about scope and namespace like part and parcel of programming, right? But what is namespace? So think of namespace as a surname mechanism that will be prepended to any variable names, such as X and V and W, right? So any variable names that we refer to, for example, X, when we say X, which X are we talking about? Now you might say, obviously is this. Well, it may not be that obvious because, for example, I could have illustrated my example with an X instead of a Y inside here, inside my function. So when we say X, then which X are we talking about? So you see, those are the problematic parts. Yeah, so it becomes unclear. Now imagine going to a room and there is this person called, last name is Smith, first name is John. Normally, if there is one person that's your friend, we will just say, hey, John, right? John. We don't just call the full name because it's unique, it's clear. Now, if that room has two Johns, a Smith John and a Watson John, imagine what will happen. Both are your friends, and you kind of like just walk in and, hi, John. What happens? What happens? Well, quite easy to imagine in such a social occasions, both Johns will respond hi, thinking that your John refers to each of them. Then you have problem, right? Because when we say that I want X and both values 3 and 9 come in, suppose this has been redefined as X, we will have a problem. What should we print? Is it 3 or 9? And we can't print both. So we'll have this clash of referencing the variable. So here, a useful word is scope. Scope means from where to where, which part of our program or runtime space can we refer to X. So scope means the where and when, right? The valid where and the valid when that we can refer to a particular variable correctly. So that's the intention of using this word scope. And namespace is to unambiguatize it, if that's a word. That means we want to disambiguate any references by the first name, by just the name of